Here are the best characters, keepsakes, and second awakenings ranked on a tier list as of November 2023. So let's get into it. Before we begin, make sure to watch my previous tier list videos if you are new to the channel, as I will only be going into the 2 new characters that have been added within the last month, being Suiryu and Boros Plus. And before I go into these 2 in particular, I would also like to address some changes from last month's tier list. So in terms of downgrades, Red Mosquito Girl will be dropping from SS to S tier. Now, why her sudden downfall? Well, it's because she's still very useful PvE wise, but due to the release of Boros Plus, RMG has been casted as the sub DPS dealer when paired with Boros. So that's why she will be downgraded to show their difference in power between the 2, since there is a significant difference. And SSR Genos will also be downgraded from S to A tier, because his usefulness in PvP is no longer viable, especially with the arrival of Boros and his pirate minions tanking so much damage, so Genos will remain in the A tier. Now in terms of upgrades, Lightning Max, I'll be bumping him up from the C tier into the B tier, since his stun can be extremely effective in PvE when using him in Epic Conqueror's Challenge and in Mirage Trials, as various upcoming YouTubers such as Infant and Wolfwood have portrayed his effectiveness extremely well when using him. Now he does need his keepsake in order to be viable in these PvE instances, which is quite expensive and can be bought for 300 supply voucher coins, which for most players you are better off spending those coins for 12 sacks instead. So with his keepsake he should be in the A tier, but I'm going to be putting him in the B tier for now, since most people won't be able to get his keepsake, so I will leave him here, but he's very useful in PvE. And finally, I will bump Hellfire Flame from A tier to S tier. So last month I ranked him low since he wasn't really released as of yet, but after his release he is quite useful as a support character and in absorbing incoming damage. So since we are in the current bomb meta, it's only right to leave him in the S tier for the time being, since he is strong when the whales do use him in Endless Battle Zone. So he will stay in this tier because he is a solid duelist to have. Now going through the new updated rankings, I've also decided to rank the S and the SS tiers in order, just to provide some competitiveness, and it is all entirely my opinion, so you can disagree with me. But before I do that, I might just rank the A tier a little bit slightly. Everyone here is basically, it's all the same, but I just want to put Zombie Man I guess in front just to emphasize that he is basically the best A tier because he's a core unit. Then everyone here is pretty much even. Now in terms of the S tier, this will be all completely ranked in order. So firstly, I'm going to put Bengpu on top of them all, since his core allows to make all of these units powerful in the current meta, so he has to belong as the strongest unit in the S tier. Then behind him I will have Red Mosquito Girl, as she is still very useful in PvE and her 5p passive is still usable in all aspects of the game, as long as you do have her 5p. Then next to her, I will also put Drive Knight behind her, as he is basically prioritized as a support character now for his ult damage passive, since ATT is no longer the main damage dealer and can be easily replaced by Boros, so he's not really used for his ultimate damage anymore, but he's still quite useful to use when paired with ATT. Now Hellfire I will also slot next to Drive Knight and as a good solid S tier unit, as he is a good support for Bob's core. So then next I will also slot in Bakuzan, since he is also quite a good DPS character against Bomb's shields due to his charge damage. However, with Boros' minions active, he is quite useless, but he's still better than the characters in the tiers below him, and he is still quite useful in Life Clash for the time being. Slotted behind him, I will have Watchdog Man, as he is prioritized now as a support character to buff the HP of his ally within the same column, but he can be countered by Boros' ults to reduce his unyielding chances down from 2 to 1. So that's why he isn't really ranked any higher, since he does get countered by Boros Plus. Now as of a new character, Suiryu I will be putting in the S tier, and I will be putting him right behind Watchdog Man. So he is an S tier character, since for the past 3 weeks he's been extremely useful in Epic Conqueror's Challenge, as well as in Live Clash and in Hero PvP. So he can be very powerful if you don't have any other heavy DPS nukers and have him highly invested into. He also buffs the charge damage of all charged units, so he will be extremely useful as a support unit when using him with Carnage Kabuto and Metal Bat in PvE whenever they come out in the near future. Then next behind him I will have Gyoro Gyoro, as he is basically the best villain core currently, but in terms of every other game mode he is outshined by Bengpu as the main core. Then we have Awakened Vaccine Man, which is quite good as long as you have your ATT or AVM faster than your enemy to deal immediate damage directly towards your enemy's HP. Otherwise, without any speed advantage, he is picked off quite easily because he doesn't get his unyielding chances if the force field isn't activated before his attack. So he can be picked off quite easily if you are outsped. And finally in the S tier we will have Goketsu, as he is also now prioritized as a support unit due to his shield rate passive, which buffs Bengpu's shields, so he will make your team much more tankier. Now then, going through the SS tier, I'm going to start things off by adding Boros Plus at the top of the SS tier. He is basically the most powerful unit we have at the moment. So in future he won't be considered as the most powerful unit, but as of this current meta, he is an absolute game changer in both PvP and PvE. In PvE, he deals an absurd amount of damage against bosses such as Club Boss Boros, where you have players such as Gamma dealing 300 million damage just from Boros's ult alone. And in PvP, you have players such as Jungkook's 2 minions completely annihilating his opponents who dare try and deal tons of damage onto him and instantly regret it because of the whales being able to invest 2 million attack into Boros. So he is insanely OP in PvP and will be for quite a while, since his minions explosion damage does scale off his attack, so it is insane. Now in terms of having the strongest Boros in PvP, KayzX has proved the point in that making Boros fast will defeat a much stronger Boros, as speed is still a major factor in PvP at the moment, as in the EBZ finals this week, Jungkook's Boros did die before his Boros could even attack, with the support of KayzX's Awakened 3 Child Emperor and his doggos, which by the way is a waste of money, so please don't awaken 3 any characters except core characters if you do have thousands of actual money to spare, but even then still not worth it unless you're KayzX. So overall he's an amazing character. Those who pull for him right now will have fun using him, so he definitely will be regarded as the best unit in the game currently. Now going through the rest of my SS tier list order, I'm going to put Child Emperor above the rest of the remaining LSSRs. Now this is because his dogs are what make him powerful, as they are super annoying to go up against during the first 3 rounds of each battle. So because of this, he will be ranked higher than these remaining 3. And he is also very useful in clearing PvE game modes such as Epic Conqueror's Challenge for the time being. So he definitely remains as the second strongest unit currently in the game. Now next down the list, this might be a bit controversial, but I will be putting Sonic V2 over Gale Wind. Now my reasoning for this is because in PvP, speed is an extremely important factor, where PvP is basically unwinnable if you don't have a speedster. Sonic is able to be used in both PvP and PvE, as he's also very useful in Epic Conqueror's challenges and against Boros. Now with Gale Wind on the other hand, his stuns are extremely good in PvE, as you can progress so much further into all game modes. However, in PvP, if it's a Sonic v Gale Wind, then Sonic will always win, since he will increase the speed of himself and to others. Then Gale Wind will finally be able to attack. So Gale Wind isn't the strongest in PvP, considering that he will be countered by Metal Bat Plus very soon, and Sonic will still be used throughout the Bengpu era. So this is why Sonic is above Gale Wind, and this is all very selective and play key roles. In certain scenarios, they are better in certain instances, so this is my reasoning for this ranking. Overall, Sonic is more useful in majority of the game modes than compared to Gale Wind. And finally, ATT is also ranked in the SS tier, as she is strong, and a fast ATT can still defeat those Child Emperors in PvP, and especially in PvE, she's still a key unit to progress so much further into Mirage Trials, as portrayed in Wolfwood's Mirage Trials video. So she's still definitely super strong, but in terms of being the strongest overall, she is outshined by Boros, especially as the main Esper damage dealing unit, but she's still very useful for a very long time in PvE. So this is my current rankings for the main characters as of November. Now I will also go through the keepsakes of Suiryu and Boros, as well as the ST keepsakes in a particular order. Now before I rank these top keepsakes, I will put Suiryu's into the A tier, which isn't ordered in any particular order since I don't really want to order them, since they're all pretty good in their own way, so these are not ordered in a particular order. So Suiryu's keepsake is able to weaken enemies' hits with his ultimate whenever he crits, which can be extremely powerful in both PvP and PvE. And he also deals tons of charge damage when stacked with tenacity, so his keepsake makes him a very strong character in many aspects of the game and will prove to be quite useful in the long run. Now in terms of keepsakes in the S tier, I am going to once again put Boros as the best keepsake in the game, just purely because of the amount of damage he can deal, especially with the additional crit buff he obtains when you unlock his keepsake. Didn't you already see how much damage he can do from the examples I just displayed on screen? Now his 5p passive isn't necessary, which is quite a bummer, but his keepsake still being able to deal the most amount of damage possible in the game is great for a very long time. Now next up, which also could be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to put Gale Wind's keepsake over Sonic V2's keepsake. Now the reason being is that being able to inflict a guaranteed 3 stuns with a 1 in 8 chance in getting that potential 4th stun with a formal set equipped is an absolute game changer, especially in PvE, since his keepsake will allow Gale to be used for another year until he is replaced by Metal Knight Plus, which is a very long time from now. So his keepsake is what is going to make all players still use him for an extremely long time, as his longevity is super long during the ssrplus era. Now Sonic's keepsake is also great since it allows him to deal more of both his regular and charged damage, but his keepsake is mainly used to unlock his 5p passive for PvP. Otherwise his keepsake isn't really useful in PvE, and in future he does get replaced by a speedster such as King Plus for the whales out there, so then his keepsake basically becomes obsolete against those King Plus players. So that's why I'm going to rate Gale's keepsake above Sonic's, because Gale is going to be used for years on end for PvE, whereas Sonic, for those whale players out there, he will be replaced by King Plus or even Flashy Flash Plus in the near future. But both of their keepsakes are still very good, especially if you have Sonic's, because he is the main villain speedster for a super long time until the all new ultra rare units come out, which will be probably 2 years from now. Now next up, I am going to put Child Emperor's keepsake. So the reason why he is ranked somewhat low is because all his keepsake provides is just more direct damage, which you can see on screen is still very powerful, so it is still very good, just doesn't provide as much utility as the 3 above it. Next up, I'm also going to put ATT's keepsake, as her keepsake is also very good, as this is what will carry you through Mirage Trials and other PvE game modes, as her force field being able to explode twice is great in doing damage through those pesky shields. And finally, I'm going to put RMG's keepsake in the S tier, as her keepsake is still brilliant in PvE, as being able to get her 5p passive is what makes her able to deal even the same amount of damage Boros Plus can deal through a long battle and overall. But without her 5p, then she is pretty useless, so her keepsake will still remain her in the top tier. She is still a solid unit if you have a keepsake and if you have her 5p. But she will be ranked below these units previously mentioned. So this is the current rankings in terms of keepsakes as of November. Now finally, I'm going to go through the second awakenings of each ssrplus character. So Bakuzan is still just gonna stay forever lonely in his own little tier. What a pathetic character you are. Now with the remaining 2, I'm actually going to downgrade Child Emperor's Awaken 2 down to B tier, and then bump up Boros's Awaken 2 to the A tier. Now, why did I do that? Well, Boros's minions are far superior due to his damage sharing mechanic, where having 2 minions will allow your team to withstand incoming damage across both rows, allowing you to almost guarantee that you will survive past turn 1. And that's not to mention being able to explode twice, which if you saw from those EBZ battles, they can pack quite a punch. This mechanic also has no official counter until much later during the Geruganshub era, so his Awaken 2 will be worth it for quite a long time, and will bring him somewhat some longevity during the Geruganshub Plus era if you did manage to get his Awaken 2. So it definitely belongs in the A tier and not the S tier, since I will be saving this S tier for absolutely game-breaking mechanics which won't be touched until another couple months or so. Now with Child Emperor, his 2 dogs are still very good in constantly healing your team as well as picking off your enemies after their shield has been broken, as like in this example when Masak's dogs were able to pick off Boros before he had a chance to attack. Now the reason why he was able to do so was because he utilized the explosion damage from Boros' minions in order to grant that opening. So overall, Boros' minions are far more superior than Child Emperor's doggos, but those dogs are still very useful in breaking those Bengpu shields, as well as being super handy in PvE game modes such as in Epic Conqueror's Challenge. And that wraps up the current rankings as of November 2023. I'd love to give shoutouts to all of my amazing YouTube members, so special thanks to my X tier members being Gamma, Solionaire, Blackshot, Swift, Oliver, Shinobu PK, and my new X tier member Nieni, my Y tier member being Dragon, my Z tier members being Red Skunk, Zelion, Skies, Creighton, and my 4 new Z tier members Dove, Jasper, Aiden, and Freddy. Thank you all very much for your increasing amount of support, as you guys are massive contributors in making this type of content possible. So anyways, that's all for today. Feel free to comment down below if you have anything from this video that you agree or disagree with, or if you have any questions that you want answered, and I will catch you all next time.